completed all of the turns or those book folds that we were talking about. And I know that because I wrote 1, 2, 3, 4. Definitely pays to stay organized. So I have let my dough rest in the refrigerator another half an hour after the final turn, just to let the gluten strands relax again and also to firm the butter back up. Your dough is much easier to roll out and it's less likely to kind of squish out the sides if the butter is colder rather than room temperature. So I'm going to roll my dough out now, and now it's ready to use. My dough is rolled out to about 1/4 inch thickness, and I do want to again brush off all that excess flour. And then I'm just going to use a pastry wheel, but you can use a pizza cutter or even a paring knife is fine. Just make sure that you kind of press straight down and that you don't drag your knife. So I'm going to create about 3-inch squares, and we're going to make what's called a vol au vent, which is just a fun little puff pastry package that kind of looks like a kite. So you can get really fiddly here and get out a ruler, but I'm just using any straight edge. I just have a palette knife here just to kind of help guide where I'm cutting. So I have my nice little squares here. I'm going to fold my square into a triangle like this, and then I'm going to use my pastry wheel to cut a smaller triangle on the inside of that. We just make sure that we don't cut through right up here at the top. I'm going to unfold it, take one side that we have released and fold it over towards the inside corner, and do the same with the other side. So we wind up with a nice little cavity on the inside, and that's going to be where we would put our filling. I'm going to take a fork and I'm going to dock that. You can poke all the way through because there's so much steam that is created. We can definitely stand to get rid of a bunch of that. So we really want to dock it pretty well so that way we don't puff up in the center. We have room to put our filling. Another shape we can create with those 3x3 squares is a pinwheel. So we just take a sharp knife and we cut in toward the center from each corner. Just make sure you don't go all the way into the center. And then it doesn't matter right or left, but choose a side and stick with that side. So I'm going to stick with right. So I'm going to take that right corner and push it in toward the center. Then quarter turn. Right corner, push into the center. Quarter turn. Right corner, push into the center. Quarter turn. Right corner, push in toward the center. Now we have our beautiful little pinwheel. Here's one more fun little shape we can make. This is great for a savory filling, and this is a little what we call patty shell. So we want to cut 2 circles of the same size, Don't get rid of these scraps. You can always use these, even if you just bake them off, put a little cinnamon and sugar on them or whatever, it's still gonna taste great. So then I'm going to make a little sort of belly button in the top layer and then lay my circle with the cutout on the inside on top. And before I do that, I'm just going to, again, do a little bit of a dock to make sure that that middle doesn't puff up too much. And then when we bake that, you can just pick the belly button out, and then inside you can put your delicious filling. Could be chicken pot pie, beef pot pie, any of those nice kind of creamy fillings. Even chicken salad would be wonderful. Another very simple thing that you can do with your puff pastry is to make cheese straws. They're very simple to make, however, they're always a crowd pleaser. People go nuts for them, and when you have them with the homemade puff pastry, it is a game changer. So I'm going to brush my dough. Again, I've rolled this out to about 1/4 inch thickness. May seem like the dough is pretty thin when you roll it out, but remember there are, I think it's 1,028 layers in there, so it is going to puff up quite a bit. So after you get your sheet brushed with egg, we are going to top it with a nice Parmesan mixture. So I've just mixed some freshly grated Parmigiano Reggiano with a little bit of paprika and a little bit of parsley just for some color. And I'm going to sprinkle that all over the top of my sheet that I've brushed with egg. Make sure you get a nice even coating. You can use other cheeses here too, but it needs to be something that doesn't have a lot of moisture to it, something in the Parmesan family. All right, I'm going to cut my dough, and again, I'm just trying to use some kind of straight edge here to help give me even lines. I'm just going to use my rolling cutter, and I'm going to cut strips of dough about 1/2 inch thick. Now that I have my dough all cut up into strips, all we do is give it a good twist. Get that on your sheet pan. If it unrolls a little bit, you can kind of stick it to the sheet pan just by pressing down. And we do want to give, I'd say, at least 1.5 inches or so in between each piece, because remember, they are going to puff way up. Another pretty simple but very delicious thing you can do with puff pastry is make what's called palmiers. So they wind up being a kind of a crispy little cookie. All right, so I am just sprinkling my dough with some cinnamon and sugar. I've already rolled it out to about 1/4 inch thickness. And then I'm actually going to roll that sugar into one side. Then I'm going to flip over and do the same thing on the other side. If some of the sugar falls off, don't worry about it. So I've rolled my cinnamon and sugar into both sides of my puff pastry, and now I'm going to fold inward. This is almost like how we did our initial folds. So I'm going to fold the bottom up to the middle, top down to the middle, and then I'm going to do the same thing again. Bottom up to the middle, top down to the middle, and then we are going to cut our dough into little shapes. My dough is folded up into 2 little spirals that fold in toward each other, and now I'm going to cut across each spiral. We want to use a nice sharp knife here because we don't want to compress the layers down too much. And we want those to be roughly 1/2 inch thick. Once we get them cut up, We're gonna lay those out onto our sheet pan, cut side up. Give them just a little bit of a press down. These, you want to make sure you have a good amount of space in between each one. I'd probably only get 6 to 8 on your sheet pan. Palmier translates to elephant ears. So if you can imagine, these are going to puff way up and they're going to be about this big.